As I began to think about this and realized that there are many who are seekers of knowledge as I am. And so the Origin series is going to be a series. And since it is going to be a series, I felt it would be very prudent for those who are at the beginning, those who may be at the middle, and when we get to the end of this series, and it's going to be a long running series. And to those who stick with the series, I can assure you, you will be much more knowledgeable about who you are, where we came from, and maybe you will begin to have insights as to what the real reality is. So this is the introduction to the Origin series, and it's going to be kind of required because for you to understand what this series is about, we're going to be really digging into the first part of this is going to be the Chaldean account of Genesis. Now, why is that important? Well, it's vitally important because it now brings a challenge to the world religion of Christianity and challenges the foundation that many have been taught as truth, which is anything but. And the key word, again, you must understand as you watch this entire series, keep the word typology. It will help you as you become more aware of what the real situation as it's turning out to be. So as you have read here, the ancient Mesopotamia is where Sumer, Babylon, we could just go on, the Chaldeans in this case. And what makes this so vitally important is that as opposed when you tell a story verbally and pass it on to the next generation, that's very difficult to validate because we know it's human nature to, how shall we say, exaggerate, to add to, and take away. Just how it is. And when we find a written record, in this case the cuneiform of the Chaldeans, that have a story that is by at least 1,000 years older than the Jews themselves, hey, you got to ask what's going on. So, very important. As we go through this study, you're going to begin to see some things. You're going to understand that the sin story you've been told is crap, the way it's been told. There is a situation that story originated from. But let me make this very clear to you. We as a species have been held in bondage and captivity, what's turning out to be literally hundreds of thousands of years ago. And here's the sad reality. We are still in captivity. The story of the creation originated from these 7 tablets, which George Smith found in Nineveh around 1870. And as they learned the language, the cuneiform, it began to tell a far different story. Now, George had a hard problem. A lot of people back then had a hard time with it because this countered the powers to be. Listen, if you don't think that the church is coveted of its power, well, you're a fool. I was for the longest time. Remember, anyone who holds control over your core, your soul, by making you afraid that you're going to do this or you're going to go to hell for that. Listen, number one, hell doesn't exist. neither does heaven. But when you begin to understand there is a different story that has parallels to the one that you know, well then it's worth your time to find out what's going on. And that's what we're going to do here. This, as you can see, is what they work with. Now, these tablets date back, many of them to somewhere around 600 BC to as early as 2300 BC. They come in many different sizes. This was kind of the standard size. From what I'm seeing, there's basically about 3 standard size. There was a very large tablets that went into the royal library. Then there was kind of a middle one that was for record keeping, and then much like this, these were actually records. And let me tell you something. Get it out of your head that these people were somehow nomadic, that they were more tribesmen, and that they really did not know how to read and write. That's not true. That's a false delusion. Their societies were as sophisticated, if not more so, than ours. They had technology. Believe it or not, in fact, it's very well evident they had technology above ours. And these people were aware of themselves, of where they stood in time. Now, that's critically important. And as you can see here, you can get a lot of information. I look at this and you can almost see this as a, computer chip. So we're talking about the Assyrians. Who are they? Well, they built large temples and palaces with statues and wall coverings. Again, one of the first libraries discovered was in Nineveh and held about 25,000 tablets of stories and songs. People began to rebel because the Assyrians were cruel in their treatment. And the Chaldeans rebelled and took control of Nineveh in 612 BC. So, kind of gives you a foundation now of how the story was written, who are the cast of characters that wrote these tablets, and then we're going to learn what the tablets contained. We get a lot. The Semitics, the Hebrews, this is where they got their culture from. It's just a fact, folks. And I know that sometimes goes against traditional teaching, but this is what happened. The gods, the deities, they were real. They existed. This is a fascinating story. This is a story about Hia, who apparently created man. Now, you need to be aware of certain things here and these purses. Now, this is the bow. Notice where the bow is residing in. This bow, from what I have been able to read, had incredible power. You would be on the line of nuclear to something as powerful as, let's say, a light weapon. It was made by the gods, and here Hia is actually stringing it, and he's going into battle against Tiamat, the one that the Adam went in league with. And remember, Adam was black, and we don't know where the white race came from, what we call the Sukara. We don't know where they came from, but it is quite evident that the Adam came from the region of where we call the Fertile Crescent Valley to Africa. The Sukar came from potentially, I know this sounds strange, from Europe or, get this, potentially Atlantis. I know, weird, isn't it? So when you begin to understand who these gods are, and listen, they're as real as your God of the Bible. Here, as you can see, is a detailed close-up of the cuneiform itself. Now, once you begin to understand, it's like hieroglyphics, same thing. When you begin to get the Rosetta Stone, the more or less the one that where you begin to put a word together. and then a word leads to a phrase, and then you begin, like how we write in English, you can begin to scan very quickly and see the conversation. Now, in my next series, Origins 3, we're going to be talking about the 7 evil spirits. Strange, strange story, folks. And here, Marduk, which this is where he is, this is who it is, this is the battle. And when I read to you and we get in detail about the 7 evil gods, it's what they were. Yeah, there is a term that they use in the word spirits, but they're also the same word in the phrase is gods. When you see this character write this, these are the Onanes. Here again, you see half man, half animal. And let me tell you, folks, the record is very clear. When the fall took place and when Tiamat was subdued, folks, there was creatures walking on this planet that would have blown our minds. You would have died of a heart attack. Children's hair would have turned white. But it was very common back then. Now, I don't know what happened. It's part of this journey. But understand, this creature, half fish, half man, and look at, what is he carrying? All of these deities carry this little purse. All of them. Now, Ones, he was actually the one who taught the races, brought to them knowledge. Here is Shamash, who fights with Zu and the storm birds. You're going to find out that before we have the written record, there was, and all I can say, I know it sounds weird when I say this, there was a time before time, but there were living creatures. Oh, man, were there living creatures. This is the struggle between the good and evil. This is a cherubim, representing of a cherubim. These are the half eagle, half man, human creatures. They're replete. Again, a battle of the gods taking down Tiamat. You can see already that it's taken down one here, and he is heading into the battle again. There were creatures that had the heads of a man, but the body of birds. They had no hands. Their wings were basically the appendages. Strange, I know. Now, any of you who have been in London, have gone to the British Museum, you've seen this. And these carvings, remember, man draws from what he sees. And these people were around beings, and I don't know where they are. I don't know if they're still here. I don't know if they left. Who knows? But we know the mysteries of these creatures. Are they what ancient antediluvian man called angels? Well, no matter what you want to term them, they're aliens. they're extraterrestrials, any way you look at it. But they're here. They've been here. They influenced our history. These are the cylinders. They found thousands of these. And they tell a story that is quite fascinating of creatures, the half human, half animal. Epic battles. Let me just tell you, for the record, I think the battle is still going on. I cannot find any record that says anyone has won yet. Let that sink in. No one has won. This battle is still going on, and it appears that because of the fall of the God-man, and yes, we were created as gods. We dwelt among them. We were their delight. Now, here you can see again the cherubims. And when we begin to understand what they were communicating to us, you begin to have a far better understanding. And as we go through the series, you're going to become very, very much aware, and you're going to know who these deities are. You're going to know the stories. And when people challenge you, you're going to be able to give them factual history, not a typology of what the Bible is. The Bible is not history, folks. Get that in your head. It's a literary work. It has historical references, but it is in no way an historical document. And when you begin to understand, you begin to realize how all the gods of the world are all connected. Talk about an incestuous family tree. They're the same gods, folks. Now, they may be hiding. They may be walking among us. The story that we have been told through the Bible is crap. And you tell me how the book of Revelation ended up in the Chaldean cuneiform nearly 2300 BC. Now you explain that to me. You can't. Because it has been reinterpreted. And we're going to learn. And we're going to cover a lot more than just these documents. I will close you with this. I did find one interesting word in the Chaldean text, Nebar. It's titled Wandering Planet or Sun. And they are rebel spirits. I hope you enjoy the series, folks. Be kind to one another.